What's going on, Sunbelt fans? I am your host, Dominic Crusetto. Let's jump right into Week 5 of Round Ball Roundup. Last week, we know that we were a disappointing 12-13 overall. This week, much improved, 13-6 record overall for the whole conference. We were 0-1 versus Power 5 opponents and 0-2 versus ranked teams. However, those ranked teams are pretty good. San Diego State, who is routinely in the top 25 as that mid-major program, is still really strong and successful, ended up taking out Troy. And then number 3, Virginia. And for those of you who've been following college basketball for a long time, obviously Virginia has been very good for a long period of time, mostly because of their defense. That was evident again as well when they played James Madison, even though James Madison gave them a run for their money, but couldn't come away with the victory. So just to go over those real quick, overall, though, a little slow start to the week. Had some losses, some tough ones there at the beginning, and then finished out the week pretty strong. Didn't have any games on Sunday, but we did have a full slate on Saturday with 10 games. Sunbelt went 9-1 overall. So I think pretty impressive overall for the week. Obviously a big, nice rebound from last week and that terrible record that we had as a conference overall. Jumping into some more specific games, that first one we kind of talked about, Troy, San Diego State. San Diego State ends up winning that one 60-55, ranked number 22 in the country at the time of that game. They may jump up even further here soon. Troy had the lead at the half, actually, 33-29. Just fell off there a little bit towards the end. They did shoot the three ball better than San Diego State. So, as far as the shooting goes, everything seems really tight statistically for this game when you go back and look at the actual statistics. So this bodes well for the conference overall. I mean, before this game, Troy was sitting closer to 500, and to play a ranked team, a pretty decently ranked team, within 5 points all the way across the country like that, I think is really impressive as far as my thoughts on that game go. So I'm not disappointed at all that Troy goes down in that one. It was a little bit expected, but they played better than expected to me. So nice score to see there. We had obviously a couple games against some lower division opponents, which just about everybody took care of business as you would expect. I think Coastal Carolina had a tough loss there to Wofford. Ends up being a 10-point spread, but if you watch the game, it felt closer than 10 points, I would say, and kind of Coastal pushed a lot towards the end there when they were down by 4 or 5 and really tried to make a comeback, throwing up some stuff that they probably shouldn't have or wouldn't have otherwise, but kind of had to make some kind of effort to come back, and obviously that kind of hurts you when you miss those shots and have to keep fouling to try and keep yourself in it. End up going down by 10. Again, James Madison and Virginia, that was a 55-50 contest that UVA ends up taking. Great, pretty close game at the half, I'd say, 27-20, so not too bad. And then James Madison really ends up winning the second half. They take 30-28. It's just once you put the scores together, obviously Virginia comes out on top. But much like the Troy game, JMU shot the three a little bit better than UVA, which is a little surprising. But we know that UVA is a little bit stronger in that defensive category. But check this out. When you look at this game and you think JMU only scores 50 points, Virginia's defense is great. JMU actually out-rebounded and had more turnovers than UVA. They got more turnovers than UVA, I should say. They had 12 to UVA's 9. So that part defensively really actually kind of favored James Madison, and I think that's why this contest ended up being so close. Plus, with James Madison shooting the ball pretty well, obviously kept them in it. So I think, again, another impressive performance, especially against the number 3 team in the country, to come away with just a 5-point loss. I know that they're disappointed with the Carolina game. That was kind of right before Carolina's downfall. So it's disappointing that they couldn't get them at a different time, because that game could have ended up different. You take UVA, only 5 points. You would think maybe they get another shot at Carolina. They may be able to turn that one around. As far as a disappointing game, I think Arkansas State going down to Central Arkansas for a couple of reasons, right? You would think that at this point Arkansas State's a stronger program, needs to beat a team like Central Arkansas. Central Arkansas is not necessarily a great team. They're really they're about even record-wise with Arkansas State. So you think this is a state game, in-state game against an opponent you think you should beat every time. Kind of, they have some close games in football too. So these two teams kind of have it out for each other. It's disappointing Arkansas State couldn't come up with a victory there in that one. Wednesday night had a couple of lesser games, but Old Dominion does take care of William and Mary by 10. So I think that's a pretty decent victory for the conference overall. Marshall takes care of Duquesne up there in the Pittsburgh area, 82-71. A really impressive performance. I know maybe people don't know a lot about Duquesne, or DuQuincy, as my friend says, because it does look like it's spelled like that. But Duquesne has some scores and they have some size. And so Marshall paired that up with what they do pretty well, because they've got some scores and they've got some size. So Kinsey did really well. Hanglogden, again, these guys are getting it done for Marshall, and they're up there at the top of the conference for a reason. Arkansas State then travels out to Colorado to play Air Force and gets drubbed 80-55. Again, it's not the season Arkansas State thought they would have or wanted to have. So hopefully they can start turning some things around for themselves before conference play, and hopefully right here in the next week or two before conference play really starts rolling and they can get into some victories out of conference. Saturday had a couple games with some lesser opponents. Unfortunately, the one loss that we did suffer as a conference, Northwestern State, who was the only team to beat Southern Miss so far, takes down Monroe pretty easily, 91-73. That was kind of expected, at least from my side, so not really a major disappointment there when you kind of go in expecting it. But Troy comes away with a big victory over Tennessee Tech. I thought they'd win, but I didn't think they'd win by the spread, which was about 13.5 points. Troy ends up taking that one 87-64. So they more than easily covered the spread. Impressive victory. Marshall travels back up to that Pittsburgh area, takes care of business against Robert Morris. Texas State beats old conference foe UT Arlington. This was one that was kind of a toss-up to me. Texas State hasn't been having the season that they really wanted to have. I thought this one would be one of those ones where Arlington might have a little bit more, I don't know, maybe they're going to want to win this one more, I guess, because they kind of were essentially asked to leave the conference, really, when you come down to it. So they wanted to have that one over Texas State. They couldn't do it, which is good for us. Texas State takes the victory. Louisiana easily beats Samford. And Old Dominion struggles to beat Gardner-Webb. I thought this one would be handily taken by ODU. They've had some good games lately and beaten some people that are close by, some kind of rivalry games and intense games. Maybe that played into this one. I'm not really sure what happened, that they only scored 44, but Gardner-Webb luckily only scores 43. And really, that was within the last minute that ODU really took the lead. They took the lead on a late three. Gardner-Webb had a decent chance to put the ball up and take a 1-point victory because they were well within the paint when they put it up. I think they may have even had a chance at a rebound if I remember correctly. But they couldn't do it, so that's great. I don't know why it was so low scoring. I guess it was just a Saturday afternoon struggle for both teams, really. But again, no matter what, Old Dominion wins out of conference. Again, ended up the week 9-1. We've got some decent games coming up this week. Again, still quite a few lesser opponents, but we do have App State traveling to Wake Forest. That one's a chance for App State with what they've been doing this year, and Wake Forest hasn't been amazing, so they've got a chance for an upset there. Georgia State also travels to Auburn. I haven't seen a lot of Georgia State lately. I feel like they've had a long layoff between games, so it'll be interesting to see what they could do going up against a pretty tough Auburn team. And then a little bit lesser of a matchup, but a good Toledo team actually comes into Marshall. Might give them one of their better tests that they've had here lately. So I'd keep an eye on those three games for the most part going into next week. Obviously, watch your own personal team as much as possible. Hopefully, Sunbelt can keep things rolling and keep having a lot of success on the court. For those of you following on the socials and maybe Facebook, I've been doing some daily previews of games. I will continue to try and do this as much as possible. Hopefully people are enjoying that. Just gives a little information. We don't get into the weeds real crazy. I don't want to be the stat guy here and throw out a whole bunch of stats that get people bored and not paying attention. So hopefully that is being enjoyed and watched, and that helps lead to a little bit more people paying attention to the basketball, because I think with what we've added, we will get stronger here as we go along. So thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, comment on all the socials, whatever you can do, share it. I'd appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.